welcome to Eligned, Brain Changing Movement MAPS Masterclass. Now think of MAPS as an acronym, M.A.P.S, moving all parts safely. And that's exactly what your brain needs and requires the information about your body. Your brain works off predictability. It has to understand how a movement or a joint structure works in its full range of motion. It has to have the map of how a joint works in its full range of motion. But if you think of how a human body moves, we actually don't tend to move a lot of our joint structures in their full range of motion. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. I'm going to take you through a little teaser of some movement patterns that we should be doing. So let's get into it and start at our neck. Now your neck moves in many different ways, but we tend to stick it in one way throughout the day. So your neck moves down and up. It moves right to left. It moves side to side. It goes out and in. It circles and swivels. It Bollywoods. It does many, many movement patterns. Now, if our brain doesn't have our full mapping system of how this area works, it could have a little bit of a threat response when we do accidentally move it out of that normal range of motion. So you can make up your own movement here. Think circles, gentle swivels, left to right, up and downs, 45 degrees. The more movement, the better, because the more movement, the bigger the map for the brain, the better the predictability and outcome for that movement pattern and that joint structure. Let's move down to your shoulders. Now we've got what's called opposing joints in the body. That means what wires together fires together in the brain. So your shoulders and your hips are exactly the same moving joint. Specifically, your left hip is your right shoulder in the brain and vice versa, which also means if you've got tight shoulders, you're most likely to have tight hips as well. So with the shoulders, we need to be moving in their full range of motion, which is sort of a ball in a socket joint, just like our hips. If you place your hands on your shoulders here and you give me some big swings, big circles, this is a great place to start. You can do as many reps as you like or as little as you like here because it's about maintaining the map in the brain, and your brain holds that map for around 48 hours. What I mean is a neuron, if it doesn't get fired upon within that sort of time frame, that depends obviously on certain people, then the brain goes, do I really need this information? Not really. That's where we can have issues with tightness, immobility, tension, pain, and joints. So big circles, forward and back, but you can make your movement up. You can do circles, you can do shrugs, you can do wipers on and off. It's just creating the more movement in that joint structure that you were born and given from day dot, and never lose the ability to do that. Let's look at the upper part of the back. Now your upper thoracic's coupling joint is the lower back, which usually means people with lower back pain tend to have issues with really tight upper thoracic regions. A great one to do, especially if you're sitting at the desk all day long, is place your hands on your forearms here. You're going to push your arms away from you and then squeeze them back in. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. Push away and squeeze. Push away and squeeze. That's just creating a little bit of movement through that upper part of the back. I would try and do this on the hour, every hour at work, just to get a little bit more motion and movement. And guess what? Movement trumps pain in the brain, which means when you move something, you will slow down that threat signal that's coming up into the brain. So movement always helps with pain. But it's movement that's unique and different that will help with pain. So not just going for a walk, that's not going to cut it because you've done that since you were 2. It's trying to do some unique and different movement patterns that you haven't done before, which tantalize the brain, wake it up, and then your brain will go, whew, here's a different input, there's a different output, and hopefully settle down your pain. So let's go to the lower back and the hips. Quite a stagnant area, especially if you sit down on a chair all day long. Now your hips are a ball in a socket. The best way to move your hips is exactly creating that movement of a ball rotating in a socket. So think anything that requires a circular motion, a figure of 8 motion, a swivel motion. Right now, let's do 10 big circles one way here. And you can actually feel that ball rotating in the socket, and then reverse it. 10 big circles the other way. Maybe next time you're in a bit of lower back pain, try this one instead of just going for a walk, because it is unique and different. So big movement patterns like this will also help to squeeze out your synovial fluid. Your synovial fluid is your natural lubrication that sits in between two bones. It also carries nutrients that repairs cartilage, ligament, and bone. But it will only be squeezed out if it is demanded in a unique pattern. It's not going to be squeezed out doing something it's done since you were 2. So think of sitting down on the floor, natural movement patterns that your hips don't always do. Swiveling the legs from side to side, having the ability to naturally get up and down, which requires a lot of movement in those joint structures as well. So all of these movements create more synovial fluid, bigger, better MAPs in your brain, and more predictability for the brain. With that, let's move down to the knees. Now your knees are a hinge joint. They've had enough of this. You've done this for a long time. We train a lot in this motion, but your knees actually have little indiscrepancies that they do as well, which is that internal rotation, external rotation. So we have to map our knees in full range of motion. Because in those sports where you are coming in and doing those internal or external rotation and you haven't got the map there, is where the threat will be and where the injury usually is also. So a great one for the knees is coming off load. We're always locked and loaded with the knees. So grab yourself a chair, have a seat on that chair, place your hand underneath the knee joint, allow it to relax, and then do a nice floppy circle. So one, this is a unique movement because it's circular. The brain loves circles. It loves circles. Make up your own circles. Then reverse it. Now you could do this next time you're going for a hike and you feel a little niggle in your knee. Change the input instantly by doing a different movement pattern, and you'll notice that your output will change. Like 20 rotations one way, 20 rotations the other way. This one is also amazing for your knees. Look at the internal and external rotation that I'm creating here when I do this move. Plus it's great for the hips, as I said before. And also anything where you're creating a little bit of pressure in the knees, so that internal, external rotation, some circles, some swivels, some side to side motions, some hopping. You can't get movement wrong. In fact, there is no such thing as bad movement. The more movement you create, the more MAPs you create in your brain. And when your brain has this many MAPs, you're going to move better because it's going to have a better output of predictability. Then let's go to my favorite, which is your feet. Now your feet are the only thing that's holding you up right now. So the information coming in through your feet directly responds to your balance center, your vestibular center. So we want to make sure that your feet are strong, because they are your scaffolding and foundation of your entire body, are flexible and mobile as well, because that will relate to how your body moves from the feet, every structure up to the brain. If they're tight, immobile, and stiff, that's exactly how your body's going to feel. So we want flexibility. Stretching the feet out daily is a powerful exercise and hack for your brain. Just by doing this, you unlock the body. You create different input to the brain. You've got more bones and joints in your feet than anywhere else in the entire body. So this listens to that thing down there. So next time you're in pain, try this one. See if it changes your input. Nice big stretch of the toes. If you think of how a foot moves, it kind of only moves up and down all day long. So it needs to have circles. It needs rotation and movement because the joint does that for you. So circling the ankles, tilting the ankles, these are all very powerful movement MAPs for your brain. So if you enjoy this type of thing, if your body responds very well to it, it will, because the brain thrives on this information. It loves your joint-rich areas because they're like the power poles in your body for communication. Then I suggest you go to the Start Simple MAPS program, which is a detailed movement and mobility program of every single joint in your body and how it helps stimulate your brain for that longevity and preservation in this mechanical makeup of your body. But movement is only 9% of information coming into your brain. Powerful information, but we've also got even more powerful things that we should be working on if you naturally want to move better. We have a hierarchy. Now, the most important thing and information coming into your brain is the information coming in through your vision. It sits the closest to your brain as well, so of course it's got to be pretty powerful to that brain. Which also means if I can't see very well, I'm not going to be able to move very well. If I don't have this picture out here, then my balance system's not going to have a good predictability either. So the more tunnel vision or the more short-sighted or any kind of indiscrepancies in my eyes and my vision is going to cause me to be more wary in my movement patterns walking around in space and time. What sits very closely and is the second most important thing to your brain is your balance and vestibular center. That sits inside your inner ear. And every time you move your neck, it will kind of switch on. Hence why if you get a stiff neck, it means maybe your balance is a little bit off because your brain doesn't want you to move your neck so fast in case this might happen. Ooh, you might fall over. It also means if you have poor vision and poor balance, it's safer for your brain to slow you up in space and time. Move your joints stiffer and tighter. Be more wary about movement, but we don't want that because it's just a poor map in the brain. We can open up the mapping system just like our body by doing more eye exercises because the eyes are run by muscles and your eyes run your movement, and by doing more balance work as well. Just by practicing balancing, you will naturally open up your movement patterns and feel more flexible and mobile and free and less pain because, I said it before, movement trumps pain. So if you're interested in the hierarchy and you think, yes, that's me, I definitely need a little bit more vision work and more balance work because I'm stiff everywhere, then jump along to my brain maps. That'll take you through everything that you need to know, including other parts of your brain. We will help upregulate so that you're firing on all cylinders. Mind, body, and toes. I hope you enjoyed that little masterclass. This is some of the aligned principle that I'm extremely passionate about. I see amazing results when you go to the master switch, when you go to the boss. And when you go to that root cause, which is always coming from here, then you can fix things pretty quickly, change the input, get a better outcome straight away. Your brain is kind of like a little kid. It wants snacks constantly all day long, which means we have to give it little bits of stimulating exercises and little snacks and little tantalizing movements and brain hacks all day long. And when you do that, poof, you'll notice a huge difference in that body. Got a better brain, you're going to have a better moving body, better functioning body. So thank you for your time, and I'll see you inside in some of the programs.